What's up you guys, and welcome back to another video. And today I've got a really special guest. Mariana is the author of the Relocation Guide to Mexico. One of a kind relocation guide that you can get online. She's been working on this guide for the past 2 to 3 years, I'm told, and helped numerous people relocate to all these different areas of Mexico. Thank you so much, Mariana, for coming on and allowing me to ask you some questions about your business.
Thank you so much for having me, Rich. I really hope that your audience gets some value out of the things that we're going to talk about today.
A few of my listeners probably already know about you because you have a YouTube page, which is doing really well.
I think we have very similar people watching both of our channels, and hopefully,
Agreed.
they'll listen or learn something new today.
Why did you decide to go down that route and create this online guide to relocating, living in, basically all over Mexico? It's not any area specific, but all over, right? What made you? What gave you that motivation? I mean, you're originally from Mexico City, and you just mentioned you've been living off camera. You said you've been living in the States since you were 13.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess you come back and forth all the time to see your family in Mexico.
Yeah. So, I split my time between the US and Mexico. When I was little, I grew up in Mexico City, and my entire family lives in Mexico City, except for my parents and us. So my parents just saw an opportunity, right, to live this American dream. And we came to the US when I was very young. But I've been exposed to both cultures, both American and Mexican cultures, my entire life, because since I was very little, every single summer when I was little, we would go to Mexico City for 3 months and leave the States behind. And then as an adult, I've split my time more and more between Mexico City and Austin, Texas. So I've just experienced both cultures simultaneously more and more as an adult. And I saw and I found a new appreciation for Mexico that I didn't quite have when I was growing up in the States. And I saw an opportunity for this business, because the more I lived in Austin and the higher the cost of living gets here, and it just increases every day exponentially, I'm afraid, to be quite honest, right, that I might never be able to stop working. And I think a lot of people share that sentiment, and they realize that regardless of how much of a high earning job you might have, it might never be enough. If you didn't start saving when you were 18 or 20 or start investing in all these things. So I see that trend, and quite honestly, I share that sentiment with a lot of people. So I saw a need, and I was like, well, let me start researching what it would take for my husband and I to move to Mexico permanently. And the more I started researching these things, the more I saw that a lot of things were just outdated. They were completely inaccurate. And I was like, okay, there's something here. So I started first with a blog, and I started putting out content, just explaining what are the steps of getting a residency visa, for example.
They're still active. Your blog's still active?
Yeah, my blog is 100% free for anybody who's interested in it.
Right.
That is your source of information. And so I saw a need, right? Because I see books being published, I see a lot of seminars that happen, but the minute that you leave that seminar, you might need more support afterwards. The minute that you buy that book and it's been published, a week later it might be outdated, or something in the immigration procedure might have changed, and that book might not have that latest update. So I created an online guide that's easy to follow, and it has every step in the process that you would need to move to Mexico. I also include a directory of contacts across Mexico that can help you move to Mexico. So I give recommendations for international moving companies, realtors like you that are very professional and trustworthy. So obviously you're in our online guide.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And other realtors, not only in the Lake Chapala area, but in Mazatlan, in Guadalajara, Mexico City, Huatulco, Playa del Carmen, Oaxaca, Merida, you name it, right? Like we have most of the major cities
all around Mexico. Yeah. And I guess you need to. Yeah.
So that's our bread and butter, and it's been great because a lot of people have given us such great feedback as the years have progressed and told us, you know, I go to Facebook groups to get a lot of like the preliminary information, but I come to you for like the true accurate information.
I think that's great that people are coming, you know, looking at you as the up-to-date version. It's a daunting thing. I mean, I see it every week, you know, people that are thinking about relocating to Mexico, and they have so many questions. And a lot of the time when they're looking to buy, we're actually their first port of call, you know, the real estate agent, someone like myself. And like as a local person, I have to draw on all my contacts and you know, pass them over and say, look, guys, you know, there's, you know, feel free to contact these people, and you know, they've done a good job for you. But I'm sure yours is so much of a bigger scheme, because what you do is you're doing all over Mexico. So I mean, that's a job in itself, to stay on top of all them contacts and making sure that they're still in business, they're still doing what they quote said they were going to do, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, and you know, the guide isn't only written by me. The guide, I when we first started developing the online guide, the complete Mexico relocation online guide, I realized, you know, it's a huge task, and especially when you want to develop it for all the major cities. So I hired a variety of different experts. So we have immigration experts who have helped us write the entire residency process. We have realtors who have helped us write, you know, the home buying process or the rental process. We have real estate lawyers that have helped us write, you know, the different things that you might have to do for like a fideicomiso or a corporation or things like that a lot of people just don't know. And there's a lot of contradicting information on these Facebook groups. A lot of these Facebook groups are great. They're amazing, right? And it's 100% free. But you can also get very contradicting information, and then you might end up having more questions than you came into the Facebook group with.
Because what I discover is a lot of the time, the way we do business in Ajijic and Lake Chapala is very different from anywhere else in Mexico. And then recently I was down in Tulum and doing some videos, and when the way they do it with the fideicomisos, and it's all you know, pre-sales, and I mean it's again a completely different process of doing real estate. And if you're really not in it, you know, if you're not in it on a daily basis, you don't really know how to do it and where to start. You know, even myself, I'd be starting from scratch if I went to sell real estate in Playa del Carmen, for instance. But these little pockets in Mexico, we all do business differently, and then the immigration process can differ from state to state. Totally. And I mean, it's a minefield out there sometimes.
Yeah. It is. So the online guide has everything categorized, and it brings up a lot of questions that you didn't even know you had to ask. A lot of people don't realize that, for example, the real estate market in Mexico is very different than the US or Canada. So that's what we try to do, is educate first, and then obviously give them the right contacts so that they can do business the right way. We always say that it's really important for you to check out Mexico before deciding to live here, right? You shouldn't, I mean, a lot of people do it, right? A lot of people do end up packing their bags. They've watched enough YouTube videos and they decide, I'm going to move there. But we actually recommend that you do a scouting trip first, because moving to a new country you're going to incur some expenses, right? So we want to make sure that you're not incurring unnecessary expenses. That way, if you hate it, you haven't already leased a house, you haven't already like opened up a bank account, all those things, or gotten your residency visa, et cetera, et cetera. So we started these relocation tours where it's not a touristy tour. The purpose of the relocation tour is for you to come to a specific city. We have them all over Mexico, and we pair you up with a relocation expert in that area. And that expert has no agenda to sell you real estate, has no agenda to sell you anything. They're just going to show you rentals. They're going to show you different grocery stores. They're going to show you the various neighborhoods around that city that they think, based on your lifestyle, they do send you a questionnaire so they get to know you a little bit beforehand. Based on your lifestyle, yeah, they're going to be like, well, I think you would like this area because, you know, you have a pet and there's a lot of green areas or something like that. Obviously, in Ajijic, any area would be good for most people because it's not that big. But when you get to a big city like Guadalajara or Mexico City, then it's important to know those things.
There's like pockets. There's pockets.
Exactly.
You need to know about. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Good area.
But yeah, so they take you around the city. You can do 1-day tour. You can do a 2-day tour, 3-day tour. And the purpose is for you to actually get your boots on the ground experience and realize, one, is this for me? Two, do I envision myself living here? And three, to actually see what the cost of living is before you actually make that move.
Being on the ground. I think that's a great idea. I mean, in a way, I wish I had done that myself.
Yeah, a lot of people say that. A lot of people
I wouldn't have made
Mexico.
I wouldn't have made so many mistakes coming to Mexico.
Yeah,
I have got a list of things not to do.
exactly.
Like
Exactly.
seriously, a lot. Yeah.
And you're still gonna make mistakes. I'm not gonna sit here and say like, oh, this is like the solution to everything, and you'll never make a mistake if you take a relocation tour or if you buy the online guide. You're still gonna make mistakes because it's a lot of information to take in. But the purpose of this is to minimize the amount of mistakes that you're making, especially the really costly ones.
Do you mind me asking, like, what would that cost per day? What's an average cost for having a relocation guide in person in a city in Mexico? What does that
Yeah.
run at?
It depends on the city, and obviously these are all individual contractors, so they don't work for me specifically. They do set their own rates, but it's around 150 US dollars to $200 a day for two
Yeah.
people. And that's an entire day of taking you around. So in order for you to book a tour, you have to buy the guide.
Okay,
Because
great.
we give you all of those contacts automatically.
Yes. Yeah.
And if
Okay,
you
good.
did buy we do have some preset tours that we do have like an itinerary set up. All of those include access to the online guide. So the online guide kind of comes first, and then you can book the tour
Okay.
once you get access to the guide.
Great. Good to know. Good to point out from the beginning how it all works.
Yeah.
Great. I'm sure probably people are asking, what's involved in the guide? Could you give us like a little bit of a breakdown
Yeah.
of the specifics, of really the areas or the categories that people will get most like bang for the buck out of? Can you share that?
Yeah. I can
Give us a
give
little
you like
snippet. Give
I
me a
can give
little
you like
snippet of.
a little bit of a walkthrough on the back end. I'm going to share my screen just so you can see exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay, great.
So this is our website, mexicorelocationguide.com. I'm going to take you into the online course just to give you a brief idea of what exactly it is that you get. The introduction is just like a little bit about us, but the most of where you will live will probably be around residency visas, healthcare and insurance, best places to live, cost of living. So we have some cost of living examples, some comparisons. We do have a couple of language schools that we recommend. Driving in Mexico, like, tips to avoid getting into an accident, because driving in Mexico is a whole culture that you have to get used to.
It certainly is, yeah.
Moving, so like how to move your household goods, what kind of international moving companies we recommend, maneje de casa, when you need to do that, estate planning, things like, why you need a will, when you need a will, advanced directives, things like that. Real estate and rentals, this is where you'll find Rich's information in our recommended real estate contacts. So, a
Thank
lot
you.
of you will live in this section too. And we have
Yeah.
it every time that we have one of these articles, we have it by city. So you can quickly jump to the city that you're looking for.
That's
And
great.
that's a quick sneak peek into what people will get. And then you will also get information about your pets, like international pet companies that we recommend that will import your pet if you're flying them, or if you're driving them across the border, we give you contacts to pet transporters who will drive across the border. A couple of checklists, taxes. If you're a US citizen and you're working for an American company but living in Mexico, you can actually take advantage of some tax incentives, which really bring down your taxes in Mexico. And then
Very
obviously
important.
the private tours. So, and then I also host exclusive content for paying customers. So I bring on doctors, tax
Great.
preparers, things like that, and I interview them, and people get to ask their questions in real time. And
That's invaluable. Yeah, that's invaluable.
yeah.
That's really great.
And I have a lot of free resources too. So, for people who aren't quite ready to, pull the trigger and buy the online guide, I have a lot of free resources. I'm constantly doing YouTube videos. I put out a lot of blogs. And we're constantly trying to educate as much as possible so that people can, understand who we are and why they should trust us before they give us money.
Are you seeing now, because more and more people work online, that your demographic is actually getting younger?
Yes, definitely. It's changing. I think 2 years ago, it was very much the, almost retired, and they were looking into possibilities in the future, right? Their plan A, plan B, plan C countries. Now it's all over the place. So, and it's awesome because I'm seeing people my age, that are like, hey, I'm location independent. And I love Mexico, right? And I just want to explore more of it. And they truly love this country. And it makes me so happy that people see it and appreciate it for what it is. They're not coming here to try to change it. And they're taking advantage of like the rich culture, the better food, the better weather, obviously the lower cost of living, better healthcare, so many things. And then there's so many international schools that are accredited in the US or Canada or the UK. So you could send your kid there. And then if later on, if you have to go back to your country, they can actually use those credits in that school. So that's really important to know. And we cover all of that in the online guide, as well as.
And I have so many questions about that for myself, for the kids, are they in the right school that will give them an easy transition when they go to England, maybe one day and study later on in their life,
You never know.
You never know, but it's more and more. I mean, the cities now, you can probably, from my experience and seeing my kids at school here, you can probably get as good or a better education here than compared to any other country in the world. I mean, of course, 9 times out of 10, you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
That's granted. But there are very good, and I'm sure you share this with people, there are very good local universities, but they're incredibly difficult to get into because they have such a small pool, they have a large waiting list, or, a large amount of people that are trying to get into these free universities, almost free universities. So it makes it almost impossible. And they may be very good, but it's such a small amount of people that can get in. So I think the best education here, without a doubt, in Mexico is a private education. And it's not overly, I mean, compared to other, should we say, first world countries where education is crazy, and like the States, I mean, I think you're like number one in the world, are you? It's so expensive. Education.
Forget about it. Yeah.
They leave. I know we're going off on a tangent, but here in Mexico, you can get a very, very good education for, I would say, probably 30% the cost of what you'd pay in the States.
A middle-class family could still afford to go to a very good college.
Most
in the US, that's like, you have to be rich.
You have to be rich to pay $100,000 a year or something. It's crazy. And so I think it's a lot more accessible for young people, and because of this kind of like COVID definitely encouraged people to look out of their countries and go, where else can I live? Is Mexico an option for me to bring my kids here? And I've been seeing that more and more now. People bring their kids and they live in Sayulita, or they become live in Lake Chapala, and it's great because the kids get a whole different perspective of life.
Totally.
Maybe wanting to come to Mexico and build a family. Come and marry a Mexican, have Mexican kids.
I don't have that yet in the online guide. I don't have a dating section, but I'm thinking about having something like that.
maybe I just gave you an idea there, Mariana. Maybe that's the next chapter, the next category of finding your wife or your husband in Mexico, building a family in Mexico. Please credit me for that one if you can. If you do start that category, just put Rich gave me the idea.
Inspired by.
No, that's great. So do you get a lot of help? I mean, obviously, it's a lot of work to do this. It's do you get help from you're married, right? You get help from your husband. He helps you out with the whole business.
Dustin runs all things website related and technical. So the fact that we have a really nice knowledge base or online guide that works really well and is really well categorized, and it loads fast and all of that, that's all Dustin. So he's the brains behind that. And then I do everything else. I write all the content, I put out all the live streams. I'm constantly, because I speak fluent Spanish, I'm constantly talking to all our immigration facilitators. So we're constantly WhatsApping each other, giving each other updates on what's happening at immigration. Same thing for the realtors that I work with. We're they're constantly giving me rental updates or rentals that they think would be good for our audience. And then, because of that, I stay in touch, and then I update things in the online guide when I have an update. So I'm consistently updating the online guide, and all of our customers get a monthly email letting them know what all the updates are. But they also get invited into our private Facebook community where I post the updates as they happen in real time.
Okay, that's great. There is so much. You have so many resources at hand. It's incredible.
Yeah.
People just need enough time to look at everything,
That's true. It is true. That's a lot of the feedback that I get is just like, wow, it's so much information that it's just like, I need to sit down and dedicate the time to read it.
Absolutely. Can I ask, do you have people coming from other countries, or is it just mainly the US or Canada? Is that the bulk of the business, or?
The bulk of the business is Canada and the US. However, that is also changing in 2021 and 2022, especially 2022. I've seen an influx of Australians, as well as people from Germany and France and the UK, obviously.
As well, yeah, great. So what's the plan? What's the plan, Mariana, going forward? How do you see, the guide progressing as the years go on? What you must have a kind of a bit of a master plan, I guess. How do you see it progressing? What services were you thinking about maybe introducing into your service package, or the tours? Where do you see it going?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think truly it's at like 75% where we think it's going to be right in the future. I would love to develop this for other countries like Costa Rica, Portugal, Ecuador, other countries that people are really interested in. We also have a sister company in Panama. So check out Panama Relocation Tours if you're looking into Panama. There you go. And I really see adding more providers and educating people into more of these cities that nobody really ever talks about. Like, for example, Puebla. Nobody ever really talks about Puebla, but it's a really nice place to live, low cost of living, great temperate weather. Atlisco is another one that people don't really talk about. So I just want to educate people more and develop our network of vetted and professional contacts in all of Mexico. I want to have somewhere everywhere so that if you really are thinking and you're serious about moving to Mexico, that if you buy that online guide, you will have a list of people that you can rely on that will help you regardless of where you move.
And do you encourage people? Is there something in the tour? I saw a little bit of a category of language. With that little category of language, what do you recommend to them? Because language is such an important part, I think, about moving to another country. And, for people to really feel at ease it took me years. It took me years to have, my Spanish is so, I get by,
Yeah.
But it's taken me years to get to this point.
Yeah.
And a lot of people come with very, very little Spanish. How does the tour guide, how does the relocation guide help with that?
We actually partnered up with a few schools that we recommend. So one of them is like Zaloa Languages. Another one is breakthroughspanish.com. Zaloa has an immersion school where you actually spend time with a Mexican host family for, you can choose like a week or 2 weeks or more. So that's great. Before you move to Mexico, I highly recommend doing something like that. We do always recommend somebody start learning as much Spanish as you can before moving to Mexico, and go for the easy stuff. Like when you go do your groceries, write your grocery list in Spanish and in English. So you start getting familiar with like how to say carrot or how to even write it down before you move to Mexico. And we do have a lot of other resources available in the online guide. We have a lot of cheat sheets. Like, for example, if you were going to rent a house, We have a graph or an infographic that tells you, you know, these are the common terms that you'll see, like what is furnished, amueblado, you know, rentar means to rent, or se alquila means also for rent.
And they can print these off. They can print them off, and then they've got them in their hand to go. Yeah, that's
great.
you
can print them off. So if you are doing your research beforehand on Facebook Marketplace or whatever in these areas where the listing is in Spanish, you can look for keywords and know what does that rental say instead of having to translate to English. But you know, with apps like Google Translate, it makes it so much easier nowadays to be able to move to a new country and start adapting quickly, at least quicker than like in the early 2000s when that was non-existent.
Yeah, we go back to the Lonely Planet guys. Big fat books.
Yeah.
There was no applications then, guys. Only, you know, smartphones didn't exist.
Exactly.
When I was backpacking around Thailand, there was not a smartphone in Thailand.
Exactly. If you needed help, you needed to know how to say help in Thai.
You had to, yeah, or meet a local, or just get it wrong.
And their alphabet is completely different.
Get a girlfriend, you know, a local girlfriend or something.
There you
Someone
go.
teach you the language.
We always say that too.
Don't be afraid, guys. Don't be afraid. You know, I've made so many mistakes in Spanish, and that's the only way you're going to learn. But you have to be adventurous a little bit, you know, and not be afraid to make mistakes. That's what I always say to people. Just enjoy it, because it, you know, the standard of life when you actually can, you know, get by on a daily basis with a foreign language in the country you're living is incredible. It changes your experience, and I've seen people learn and they just have a whole different respect for the country, for the people, for the culture. It's a beautiful thing, you know, and people embrace you, I think. And, you know, when you come to another country and you do try, the locals embrace that. I always leave the last word to my guest, and is there something you would like to add, just to close off this little get together?
Sure. I would say if you're even slightly on the fence about moving to Mexico, follow Rich's channel. He gives a lot of really great information about, you know, particularly the Lake Chapala area, but it applies to most of Mexico anyway. And, you know, definitely follow his channel. He has a lot of really engaging and entertaining content on there. And I would say that if you're serious about, you know, experiencing life outside of the country that you're currently in, consider Mexico. It's a wonderful country. It has wonderful people, beautiful culture, wonderful food, and I hope that you will make the move sooner rather than later. You won't regret it. It's not going to be a piece of cake every day, right? But the longer that you immerse yourself, that you're here, that you try, that you don't give up, that you know, you can get frustrated. I mean, it's valid to get frustrated because things are going to be different. But I would say really ask yourself before you move to Mexico, are you ready to be taken out of your comfort zone? Because if you're not, then you're going to be very frustrated and it might not be worth it for you. So really ask yourself, am I ready, right, to be challenged by that? And eventually, when you move to Mexico, eventually you'll get so good at learning things that it won't seem like a challenge anymore. But those things do take time. So I would say definitely ask yourself before moving to Mexico, am I ready, right, to be completely taken out of my comfort zone, to not know how things are done and have to learn how to do things again? And then second of all, do your due diligence, right? Don't just listen to me. Don't just listen to the next person. Don't just read one book. Do your due diligence. Absorb as much information as you can, right? And then decide for yourself. But don't just go with one source of information. Even myself, and I claim to be like the expert of living and moving to Mexico, but even then I would say go with other sources and collect it all together and then decide for yourself. But definitely do your due diligence.
I don't think it couldn't have been better said. I think that's where we're going to end. Can you share the price of it, Mariana?
Yeah. Absolutely. The online guide is $395 US. It's a lifetime access, so it's a one-time fee. You get lifetime access.
But thank you, Mariana. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast, and it's my pleasure that I interview you today. I wish you all the best with your relocation business. So there we have it, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast today. Mariana has been an absolute treat. She has given us so much information, a wealth of information. As per usual, I will leave all her contact information down below, so feel free to contact her, give her an email, call her, and have a chat with her. Check out her YouTube channel, link in the description. And that's it for now. And I'll see you all on the next video. Hasta luego, amigos.